For this video, I'm just going to have my process of the whole experiment in the background while I explain what was happening. So for the first experiment, we were directed to bring a pot of boiling water, and then tablespoon by tablespoon, we would add more of each ingredient. For the first ingredient, we used salt, and we saw that the boiling point rose within the water throughout each tablespoon being added. This is because salt is a true solution, and therefore that raises the vapor pressure of the water. As for the sugar, my results showed that the boiling point was not affected as much. And lastly, I wanted to talk about the cornmeal. After buying my ingredients, I realized that I don't think I bought the correct cornmeal. I ended up buying the self-rising cornmeal, and I think that since this has extra ingredients added, such as baking soda, it caused my pot to actually boil over very quick. And since it was boiling over, I kept having to change the temp on the stove and redo, like bringing back to a boil. I tried to keep the temp about the same each time before adding the next ingredient, and it still stayed about the same. So I think that could have affected my results a little bit, but cornmeal still shouldn't affect the boiling point very much. These results were still what I expected, and since cornmeal is very compact and it's not a very small ingredient, when it's separated, it is less likely that it will affect the water, since it is not actually mixing or dissolving. The purpose of this lab overall was to show us how different solutions might affect the vapor pressure and also the boiling points of water. Looking into the chemistry of food is important to realize how different foods might need to be cooked at different temperatures and times. After this clip ends, I'm going to here's the first picture. I'm going to be showing the three different pictures of my cookies and how they turned out, but I'm just gonna talk over it while they show. For the second part of this lab, we were directed to bake cookies in 3 different types of pans. Each cookie was baked at the same time and the same temperature within the same oven, but the difference was how the heat will be transferred through each type of pan. The 3 pans were a glass, a dark colored pan, and a shiny or a light colored pan, and I was very careful in making sure that each cookie was very similar in size before they were cooked, because I know that size can greatly affect how a cookie does turn out. For the glass pan cookies, I found that they ended up being a lot more gooey and less baked than the other pans, and the cookies also did not brown. This is because a glass pan heats a lot slower than other pans, but since it's such a dense and thick material, once it is hot, then it ends up cooking the foods more rapidly. The dark colored pans ended up being more brown than the light colored pans, and since this is because the dark color absorbs and attracts more heat. This means that since they were all in there for the same amount of time as the other cookies, they were going to end up being a lot more done throughout the whole cookie instead of just on the outside like with the light colored pan. So here's the last of the 3 cookies, and the purpose of this lab overall was to show the differences in each dry heat cooking methods and how different materials and surfaces can affect the cooking. This lab mainly showed us how conduction works through the different materials, and also we saw the importance of pan placements in the oven. The color of a pan truly makes a difference in how food will turn out, and in this lab we learned that dark colored pans cause more browning than others, and they also absorb heat a lot quicker.